watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that most of my videos are related to wet shaving. Razors, shaving soaps, aftershaves, shaving brushes. But from time to time, I'm going to roll in things that are other things I'm interested in. Things that are guy related, gear that guys like to collect or are interested in, or daily tools they might use. Things they tend to have on them pretty much all the time, right? So what we're going to do today, as you can tell by the title of the video, is we're going to get into some budget pocket knives. Pocket knives that I would consider carrying, and I have a large collection here, at least of ones that have been pretty popular over the last couple years, and I'm actually going to get rid of most of them. I'm going to keep a couple that, well, a couple, 3, 4. I would love to keep them all, collect all of them as a collector. But, you know, there comes a time you have to prioritize what your next financial goal is, and at this point I just don't have enough funds to sort of keep all these around, so I got to decide which one of these to keep, which ones of these to keep, and which ones of these to let go. All right, let's start out by looking a little bit at the knife that kind of got me started. Now, what I'm about to show you is not the knife, but it's a close cousin to it. In fact, it's made by the same manufacturer, even though it has a different company name. This is the Byrd Meadowlark, Byrd Meadowlark 2. Now, this knife is very similar to the Spyderco Delica. But one thing that the Meadowlark has that the Delica did not have, and one of the reasons I let go of the Delica and sold it some time ago, was because I am a big fan of the forward finger choil on a knife. So what that allows you to do on a knife is to choke up on that knife, right? You can normally hold a knife back here, and with the Meadowlark or the Delica, either one, you could hold it and with, you know, 4-finger grip just fine. But the forward finger choil allows you to get a little bit more control when you're doing more detailed work. And there's jimping on the spine and jimping here in the finger choil, okay? Now, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about blade steels today or weight in terms of specific ounces. I do have some of that information here, or blade length. I'm just going to let you be able to see in comparison to the other knives, you know, how they compare, and not so much the specific metrics. You can look that up on the manufacturer's website, or I might put it in the description below. But while we're talking about the Delica and the Meadowlark, let me just go ahead and mention that the Meadowlark is definitely one of those knives that I would say consider having as a possibility for daily carry. Now, you can get the Meadowlark, you can pick up the Meadowlark for around $24, depending on what site you look on. And that's kind of the going price, sort of the cheapest price I've found on the Meadowlark. Now, the Meadowlark in the FRN, fiberglass reinforced nylon, plastic basically, which is a really nice handle, lightweight, grippy. You can get that in the Byrd in this black, in a gray color, and in a darker blue, and also a darker brown color. A knife that is similar to that is this Ganzo knife. Ganzo, not Gonzo.
Amazing!
This Ganzo Firebird, and this model is the F759, and you can get it on a number of colors. You can see here, this is the blue, but you'll notice these are pretty much identical knives. You can notice that the opening hole is a little different on this one, but it has that forward finger choil. It opens the same way. It is a back lock. But these are cheap enough, like this, the Ganzo
amazing
F759, you can pick up for like $17, $18, and I actually found it recently on Amazon Prime Day for $14. The Meadowlark and the Byrd is cheap enough to have a couple of these around, and it's the kind of knife that is very, very usable, yet if you were to lose it, you're out anywhere between, you know, $14 to, you know, $25. And they're replaceable. And these make great gifts. In fact, I'm considering giving a couple of these to my nephews. Here's another of the Ganzos.
Amazing!
Same model, but in like a OD green color. Not sure how well that color comes in. But these are largely based on the Delica. But again, the thing I like better about them is that they have a forward finger choil. Now, they don't have the fit and finish of a Spyderco Delica, but they're close enough for me for a knife that you're going to be using every day, that you're going to carry in your pocket, and that you're not going to be upset if you lose that knife, because you know you can replace it. The Byrd Meadowlark and the Ganzo
Amazing.
F759M are great choices, and I actually will keep I'll actually keep this one in, like I've got these two colors and a third one that's kind of a reddish pink. Well, I'll just show you. It's sitting right here, that color. These are great knives. I love them. They're lightweight in the pocket. I actually like to remove the pocket clip on this knife. I will do the same thing on these Meadowlarks. I'm sorry, on these Ganzos.
Amazing.
I've taken it off of the Meadowlark here, because I generally only like to clip a knife to my pocket if it's a longer knife or if I'm working out in the yard. But as far as just you know, carrying to work or carrying around, I tend to keep them in my pocket. But they have nice pocket clips. You can, you know, buy deep carry pocket clips to change out if you want to carry it a little lower in the pocket. But yeah, that's the Meadowlark and the Ganzo
Amazing.
F759. This is a smaller Byrd knife, and it's basically the same size as a Spyderco Dragonfly, which I've also owned. Great knife, and I actually have one I didn't sell but lost. I'll roll a picture of that knife in here. But anyway, this is the Byrd version of the Dragonfly, and you can see this is a little smaller knife, and you can sort of see by my hand size comparison how big of a knife this is. This knife, if you were to hold, you can't really hold it in 4 fingers back here, but if you use the forward finger choil and the top finger choil, you know, you can see you can get a 4-finger grip on it just right. And this is most EDC tasks you can perform with this smaller knife, and it's a little bit cheaper than the Meadowlark. I also have it in the G10 version. The handle, so it's not a plastic handle, it's this G10, which is also like a form of plastic, but just hard, more rigid plastic, so it makes for a heavier knife. This would be a good little executive knife or gentleman's knife to carry in your pocket. But I'm actually going to be getting rid of both of these, not because I don't like them. I love them. In fact, they'd be good desk drawer knives to open mail or what have you. But I'm just trying to sort of prioritize my knife collection. Anyway, so I'll be getting rid of these, the smaller ones, but I definitely will keep this size around. Now there's a bigger one I'll roll in here in a picture, the CRKT model of the Byrd, which is similar to the Spyderco Endura. And it's a little bit longer. Well, it's quite a bit longer. And I find that this Meadowlark slash Delica size to be perfect. This is the Kershaw Shuffle II. Now, I do not recommend the Kershaw Shuffle I. I'll put that in here. And it's just not made as well as the Shuffle II. Particularly in the close up here on this liner lock is much harder to do with one hand. And so I recommend the Shuffle II much more than I would the Shuffle I. In fact, I'm going to just get this Shuffle one out of the way here so that we can look at the Shuffle II. And let me lay it on the side where where the pocket clip is. And I'll roll this Ganzo
Amazing.
back in that's similar to the Meadowlark, just so you can see the size comparison and where there's a difference in the pocket clip. You can see that this pocket clip is tip down carry and this pocket clip is tip up carry, and you can't change it on this Kershaw. You can change it on the Meadowlark and the Ganzo knife I showed you there. Ganzo, I keep saying Ganzo. But you can see there's holes here to move that pocket clip. If you prefer tip down, you can do that. And you can also reverse it to left and right. So if you're left-handed and want to carry it on the other side, you can do that on the Meadowlark and on the Ganzo knife here. You can remove it for left-handed carry on the Shuffle II, but you cannot change whether it's tip up or tip down. It is just tip down on the Kershaw. You'll notice the Kershaw has the features that I like, and I'll move this back out of the way here when we talk about it and continue to see it for size comparison. Obviously a little shorter blade, okay? And this is a Tanto style blade. When you have sort of a, your normal sort of clip point or spear type blade on this knife, this you have more of a Tanto knife, which means it's got this sort of this one edge and then another edge. And so it's a lot smaller In fact, the cutting edge along the bottom is a little more similar to what we saw in this Byrd knife, that smaller one. But this is a very useful knife. I have given it as a gift. I gave one to my cousin for his birthday, and that one was with brown scales. You can get this in brown scales or black or brown scales, which is actually the color I prefer, but I got this one to carry to work, the black version, because it's a little less scary when you pull it out, and it's kind of blacked out, so you don't see it when you're carrying it on the pocket. But the great thing about this knife is it's just really useful. You can use that front edge, that front sharp edge there to like scrape. This is a great box opener, opening mail, just things around the house. It is a liner lock, where the other ones we looked at were back locks. So the lock is right here in the liner. So you just press it in with your finger. This one's easy to open with one hand. You can just flip from bottom if you need to. Flip this. This has got a thumb stud opening. You can see the thumb studs there. I'll do a slow roll for you to see how that opens. You just put your thumb on there and you roll it open. It locks in place, and there's the liner, and you just push the liner back open, over, and you'll notice here it's impossible for that to get your finger if you keep it right there where that choil is, and then you can just close it the rest of the way. For closing these Meadowlarks and the Ganzos, you can do it one-handed. You put your thumb back here and your finger in what's called the Spidey hole on a Spyderco, and you just push the back button, flip it down like that. Okay, so both of those can be opened one-handed and closed one-handed. The other cool thing about the Kershaw Shuffle II is that there's a bottle opener on the back. Well, you can see that bottle opener there. But there's a bottle opener, and there's also sort of a pry bar slash flathead screwdriver on this knife on the end there. Where you can see that. But that is very useful. I've opened bottles with it. I've pried with it. I've actually used it as a flathead screwdriver. It is a very versatile knife. My cousin, who I gave it to for his birthday, he actually texted me several weeks later and said it's the most useful knife he's ever owned. The price on this knife, you can get a Kershaw Shuffle II for right around $20. To me, that's one of the best bargains in knives. It's got good material. The blade steel on the Shuffle II is HCR13 MOV, which is the same that we saw on this Ganzo knife and on this Meadowlark Byrd knife. But I really, really, really like this Kershaw Shuffle II, and therefore it will not leave me either. It's going to stick around along with the Ganzo knives I showed you and the Byrd Meadowlark. All right, moving right along. This is the Cold Steel Tuff Lite. Cold Steel Tuff Lite. You'll notice it has the forward finger choil. It has some jimping up here on the top, but to me the jimping is too far spaced, like it's too far apart. It should be a little bit closer together. It would grip better if these were smaller, but it does fit well four finger when you choke up on it, as you can see. It wouldn't if you're just trying to do four finger. You would be off of here. But this is another nice one for doing detailed work. It's kind of a Warncliffe style blade, right? Meaning, as you can see, if you compare that to sort of this clip point or spear type there, and then on the Tanto blade on the Shuffle II, you can see the difference. But this is nice if you're going to just be cutting open boxes, slicing things. But for some people it might not be the best everyday carry because of the blade shape. Some people would prefer more of a clip point or spear point type blade. But I find that it's very useful as an everyday carry. You can get it, let's see, the Cold Steel Tuff Lite, you can get it around $29.95. The blade steel on it is Aus 8, which is a little bit better steel. But it opens fine one-handed and closes fine one-handed. It also has a back lock, and you just push in there to close it. But it opens and closes fine. It's a little beefy. If you look at the width on the Meadowlark, you can see it's a little slightly thicker. The Kershaw II is still pretty thick. In fact, it's probably about the same. But this is just a beefy, wide handle. It's just straight up plastic, not much grip on there. Whereas on the Kershaw II or the Shuffle II, you've got some grip. Same thing with the Meadowlark. I really like this knife. I like the blade shape. There's the pocket clip. It is reversible to left-hand carry, but not to tip up carry. It's tip down only. Has a nice lanyard hole, as does the Meadowlark, and you can kind of use that as a lanyard hole on the Shuffle. You know, as I prioritize and I look at knives, I just don't get as excited about carrying this one. This is a good one to sort of keep as a beater to open, you know, boxes and get tape residue on it and stuff. But I'm leaning towards getting rid of it. But it is a great knife. So this Wharncliffe style blade interests you. You like it to be just a little, you know, beefier. This is a great knife. The Cold Steel Tuff Lite. And they make it in a little smaller side called the Tuff Lite Mini. I love this knife. Wish I could keep it. I may still keep it right now. I'm leaning towards selling it, getting rid of it. Okay, moving along. Let's look at a knife that has been gaining a lot of interest. This is the Ruger LCK. If you're familiar with Ruger's firearms like the LCP, LC9, LC380, this is sort of keeping in that vein in that Ruger and CRKT, Columbia River Knife and Tool Works, put together this model of knife, and they have it with a satin sort of spear or clip point or sheep's foot blade. This is more of a Tanto. Now, one of the things, this is a great, I love how thin this knife is. Let's open up the blades again on the Meadowlark and also the Shuffle II. Instead of being like a thumb stud or hole, finger hole, and we had a finger hole here on the Tuff Lite, this is a flipper. And for those who are not familiar, flipper is like a little piece of metal sticking out here that ideally you're supposed to be able just to flip and, you know, like push down like either a light switch or push in like a button, and it comes out. It's not a switchblade by any means, but it'll sort of look like one. Let me show you one that's going to work well in that capacity, and then I'll show you the LCK and kind of the problem I have with it. So this is the Honey Badger coming up here in just a minute. We'll talk about that one, but watch it. It's got it actually has a thumb hole where you can open it that way, right? But it also has the flipper tab right there. And so let me show you how the flipper tab works. Now, if people don't know about knives, they're going to see that and think that that's a, quote, switchblade. And this is not even an assisted opening knife, meaning there's no spring to make it fly open. It's just that motion of it flipping open. And you can actually kind of slow roll these a little bit and see them come out. But you can hear that nice, where the lock catches, where that liner lock there catches on this knife. On the LCK, as much as I like the size of this knife, and as much as I like the blade shape of this Tanto, when you open it, it's just not, and in fact, sometimes it doesn't open all the way and lock. I'm going to try to go ahead and open it here. Yeah, it opened fine there. You just have to use some force with it to get it open. But you'll notice this one has a finger choil as well. There's no jimping on top or jimping in the finger choil. There is a Tanto type blade on here. You see it's a little different than this Tanto. It's a little bit longer of a blade. But it is lightweight. It has a pretty deep pocket carry clip. You can see that this would ride lower in your pocket, but it's got a nice pass-through design, meaning there's, you know, you can easily, there's a hole there. You can see all the way through. There is a back spacer to sort of hold it together, but it makes it easier for cleaning your knife. You have a little bit of a pass-through on that Kershaw Shuffle II, but you do not on the Meadowlarks or those Ganzos I showed you. But ultimately, I'm going to get rid of this LCK. I like it a lot, but the action on it, meaning the opening action, is just a little weak. It doesn't always engage when you flip it open, although it's engaged every time I flipped it open here on the camera. It just may be a matter of, you know, of breaking it in. But you can hear there a little bit. It's a little bit weak on it. But that's a small nitpick. I really would love to keep this knife too. I like how thin it is. Yeah, I love this knife, but I like it. I'll say that. I don't love it, and that's the reason I'm probably going to, or I will be selling that knife. Okay, let's go to another one. Let me run in a rando knife here called, this is from a company called Stedemon, which is a Chinese knife maker, and I'm going to have to run the name on it on the screen. It's also a flipper tab design. You see how these cool jade handles that are actually textured. It has a black blade. It is sort of a spear point blade. It also has the liner lock. But this knife's a little bigger than I want to carry. It's a little chunky, right? If we look at it here compared to the Meadowlark, see it's a lot longer knife. And, you know, I just don't want to carry a knife that large, maybe on the weekends, but not to work. It's going to be heavy in the pocket. It does have nice looks, nice ergos, meaning it feels great in the hand. However, even though it has that forward finger choil, actually human size when you can put your finger in, there's no jimping on top, like any indentations on top or bottom to make it easier to grip, but you can still choke up on it with that forward finger choil. However, you can hold it with 4 fingers with just without the choil. Kind of don't like that big screw design there, but this knife is normally about $50 at Blade HQ, but it was available on Amazon for Prime Day for 30. I think I got it for like 34 bucks. But I'm definitely going to be selling it. I really like the looks of it. I'd love to keep it around just as a piece because I love these jade colored handles. It's very well made, like it a lot, but in the interest of only keeping the things that I love, I like this knife, but it's going to have to move on. All right, so next up, let's go to a knife I think is just beautiful. This is the CIVIVI Baklash. And you can see it's quite a lot larger knife than the Meadowlark is. Also larger than the Shuffle II. I love this knife for a variety of reasons. It's made by WE knives. It's just like Spyderco makes Byrd knives. This is the budget line for WE. I don't know if you can see this, but the liners in there are actually blue in color. All right, and it is absolutely beautiful. You can see the liners there a little bit better. They're blue. This comes in black and green as well. This is the one with the blue liners. I think there's one that's black with gold liners. This is the color I like. It does have a forward finger choil that's large enough to get your hand in there, although it's a little close. I don't know how well you can see what I'm talking about here. It's a little close on the finger right there. I would like for it to be a little bit larger, say like it is on the Shuffle or on the Meadowlark / Ganzo I showed you. So it's just not, to me, it's not wide enough of a finger choil. It does have some jimping and quite the generous jimping on top. It even goes way up on the spine of the blade. I like that quite a bit. But ultimately, this is going to be just a knife that's a little bit bigger than I would want to carry. It's beautiful. I would love to have it in my collection. I do like it. But for carryability and practicality, not something I'm going to keep. Beautiful knife. They have some smaller ones coming out I'm interested in, but this CIVIVI Baklash is going to be moving on. Here's a similar knife, also a flipper tab design. Okay, this is a knife I really like, the CRKT Hootenanny. The CRKT Hootenanny. It is a flipper design. You can see the flipper here on the side. So you just get that open, and it's got smooth opening, great action. That liner lock has a satisfying whack when you open it. You can hear it lock up solid. And I don't tend to like black knives. So like carbon fiber is just not my favorite thing. It's just not my style. I'll say that. And this pivot cover is a little kind of wonky to me, a little weird. We just have the regular screw on this side. You can see that's a pretty deep carry pocket clip on this knife. Let me get a little closer here. You can see that pretty deep pocket carry clip. It is not reversible either. It's tip up tip up only carry and not reversible to left-handed. But what I love about this knife is the blade, and particularly this finger choil here is large enough. It's got jimping on it, and it also has jimping, not so much, but it does have a little bit here on the thumb ramp on the actual frame or the scales of the blade and the tang of the blade, but it has it way up here on the spine of the blade as well. Okay, you see that? And so that makes it easy when you're working on something where you're doing really detailed work and you want to sort of lock in here, you're able to do that. Let me show you a size comparison on that to the Meadowlark and to the Shuffle. Sort of see the difference in size comparisons there. If the scales on it were a little different, it was in a little bit of a different color, different handle material, maybe a lightweight FRN like this, I would consider keeping it. I really love this knife. It's by a famous knife designer, Ken Onion. It's one of his designs. It's a great blade. It's beautiful. It's a little heavy compared to knives its size, but I really like this knife, and I'm probably going to have a hard time parting with it just because I love that unique design. But ultimately, is it a knife I'm going to use a lot and carry a lot? Probably not, because it's a little bit heavy and not quite as practical, and more of an executive gentleman's knife, but it's a little large for that day to day. So be a good desk drawer knife or street knife. Like if you're carrying this around on night on the town, and you just want to have a little bit of larger blade. It's nice. I like it a lot, but not enough to keep it around in the collection. I try to only keep things that I actually love. That if you're familiar with that book, The Magic Art of Tidying, she talks a lot in there about only keeping things that bring you joy, and that brings me joy, but not as much as maybe the money I would get from selling it. Great knife, CRKT Hootenanny. Again, just one more time, great action, great lockup, fun knife to play with, but not one I'm going to be keeping around, sadly. All right, moving on. Let's go to the Steel Wheel Cutjack Mini. This is also a flipper design. This comes in several colors. You can get it in like a gray, I think, and a brown. I know it's like a tan, nice tan color, kind of this shade of tan. I think it may come in a green. I know it comes in a black. There's different sizes of this knife, but this is the Steel Wheel Cutjack Mini. Again, flipper design. It has a wire pocket clip. It's not a deep pocket carry. It only comes, so you have a lot of the knife sticking up out of the pocket, but that's, that's okay with me. Again, I don't clip my knives quite as often. In fact, I might take that clip off if I were carrying this one myself. It has a flipper tab as well. Just with like that Ruger LCK, I find the action on this knife is a little weak. Like sometimes when you try to flip it, it just doesn't open as well as it should. It is a liner lock as well. You can see there the liner lock, right? And all these knives I've shown you are easily open one-handed and closed one-handed. Yeah, Steel Wheel Cutjack. I love the jimping on the spine. There's no jimping here in the finger choil, but it is an ample finger choil. However, again, it's kind of weird where the finger choil and the blade edge meet. It's a little close for my taste. You see the texture there, nice grippy texture. I like the knife overall. The flipper tab, it's got a nice back spacer that's a different color than the rest of the knife. On this one's kind of hard to see because it's black and blue, so it's not that much difference. But again, just like with the Ruger / CRKT LCK, sometimes the opening on it can be a little weak. Did you hear that? Or did you almost not hear that? It barely locked up. It just doesn't have that satisfying opening. You're not confident that it locks the first time. In fact, if you try to push button this knife, it actually hurts a little bit. You see it didn't open. You have to kind of use it as like you would a light switch. So you're just flipping down. Nice knife. You like the looks of this, not concerned about some of the things that I put out there as related to ergos. You definitely could, this knife might work for you. Again, size comparison here, just to see sort of the difference between those. And I'll put the CIVIVI Baklash in here again so you can see that one. All right, so that's the Steel Wheel Cutjack Mini. They make a Cutjack Modus, a Steel Wheel Modus and a Steel Wheel Cutjack like the regular size. They're a little larger, but this is the smaller size. I like it a lot. Whew. Just like many of these, it's going to be a hard time parting with this one, but it's not one I see myself carrying that often because there's ones I just like better, so it's going to move on to a new home. Moving right along, the Ganzo FH51. It's the FH51. This Ganzo, I'm going to be honest with you, I love the color. The handle scales on it have a little bit of a wood pattern to them. You see that? Even though it's blue, it's kind of got a wood grain to it. It has sort of a pass-through design. By the way, the Cutjack has a little bit of a pass-through design as well. If you remember, this is a Ganzo knife we talked about earlier, very similar to the Spyderco Delica and Byrd Meadowlark. I'm not sure if there's a knife that this is patterned after. Also a liner lock, you can see there. There's the liner, you just push it over to close it, okay? It's a flipper opening knife, so there's the flipper. Opens well, beautiful knife. It's a very spear point blade, which I'm not really fond of. It'll be a really delicate tip. The jimping on top I do like, even though it's kind of wide like you saw on the Tuff Lite. The finger choil, again here, it's there. It's large enough. It's not as small as it is on some Ganzos, but it's still a little close for me. I don't feel as comfortable using it there, but you know, I've never cut myself with it. I really like this knife. I like the action on it. This knife, I picked it up, the FH51, for $27.95. You can find it on Amazon, different places. I'm probably going to keep it because I'm a sucker for that blue color. I don't know if you can tell the blue color there. It's kind of a dusty, dark blue. And I can see myself carrying this one. But I will tell you, it's in the gray area. I might not keep it around. But it's a well-made knife. Ganzo makes knives that are well-made. You get a lot of money for your value. Now, here's something I will say about Ganzo knives. They sort of take other people's designs, okay? So you can see the Ganzo here has very similar opening to the Byrd Meadowlark. You can see the Byrd Meadowlark has sort of this bird beak shape. This is sort of oval on the Ganzo. Here's a Spyderco, not sub $50, not under $50. This is a little more expensive knife. But you can see Spyderco has a hole there, what they would call the Spidey hole for opening. Ganzo has copied that design on their knives. Here is a Ganzo.
Amazing.
Again, Ganzo G733. G733, which you can get for under $50. I'll roll in the price here for what it's available for. But you'll notice it has directly, I mean, it's got that Spyderco opening hole. It also has like a little bit of a sharpening notch. You'll notice how its finger choil doesn't go as far as it does on the Stretch 2, right? And it's got a sharpening notch there so that you can stop sharpening before you get all the way back here. There's no jimping on the forward finger choil, although it's plenty large, particularly with that sharpening notch there. There is jimping on the spine. On a Stretch, there's actual jimping here. You can get a lightweight Stretch for under $100, but it's closer to like $80 to $90 to get a Stretch 2 and lightweight. So this doesn't fit into our budget category. Now, like I said, they kind of have taken the Spidey hole opening there on this Ganzo. They also have taken it on this Ganzo, the G729. Okay. Now, if you'll notice the blade shape on this Ganzo, which again is the G733, is very similar to the Stretch. It's basically a Stretch blade, right? It's just the same blade shape as the Stretch. You'll notice on this one, the G729, you have more of a pointed, less of a sheep's foot blade and more of a pointed blade. It's very similar to the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which has a sharp point. I had the Paramilitary 2. I got rid of it because I didn't like that delicate point on it. For other people, they'll like that. Now again, you'll notice they're using the Spyderco hole there, some Spyderco blade shapes, Paramilitary 2, the Stretch 2. But they also have a lock on here that I really love that you see mostly on Benchmade knives, Benchmade AXIS lock. I don't have any Benchmades. I've owned them, but I've never found a Benchmade with a forward finger choil, which is a requirement for me. I love those for choking up on a knife, and Benchmade just doesn't have those. But what they do have is an awesome lock like this that you see here on these knives, if I can get that there. So the way these locks work, AXIS lock, is you actually, like you push in, pull back on both sides of this lock. There's a spring in there. Now, when you do that on these knives, watch what happens. The blade just drops, okay? So it's really easy to open and close. Now, the cool thing about this is it's got real good detent because of that lock, but you can pull that lock open and actually swing this blade open, swing it closed. I'm kind of reaching around the tripod here, so it's a little harder. but it's real easy to open, real easy to close, all right? Because that's an AXIS lock similar to Benchmade. Same thing on this 729 that looks like a Para 2. Very easy to open, close using that AXIS lock. I'm just pulling it back and closing it, pulling it back, opening it, and then letting it lock open. Again, reaching around the tripod here. But yeah, this 729 and the 733, similar to the Stretch, similar to the Paramilitary 2, but they have basically a Benchmade AXIS lock. I imagine Benchmade and Spyderco are trying to get them to cease and desist these styles because they're stealing so much of their designs, technology. I'm not sure the legal status there. I love Spyderco, less so much Benchmade because of the absence of the forward finger trolls. So, you know, I don't want to see anybody hurt Spyderco's business, but these knives are so well made, in my opinion. Yeah, they may not have the blade steel that a Spyderco has, but, you know, these are knives I would use as beaters, right? They're a little larger than I want to carry day to day, particularly to work and to the office, but I would definitely carry them on the weekend or out at night. I may get rid of the 729, even though it's the best of a Paramilitary 2 and a Benchmade. Great pass-through designs on both of these knives, meaning you can clean them out well. See, they have the post instead of back spacers. Really great knives, sharpen well. So both these Ganzos, I roll the price in here while they sit here. You can get the 729 or 733. But again, a little bit bigger knife. I'll compare the size there again to our standard Meadowlark we looked at. All right, and also to the Shuffle II we looked at. Now, let me show you another Spyderco that is over $100. Well, this is a very large knife. This is the Spyderco Manix XL. You can see that has a very leaf-shaped blade on it. Spyderco also has their version of like an AXIS type lock, the ball bearing lock. You can see it right there. It functions the same way. You pull it back with like that little tab, their spring. You can probably see as I open it here if I can hold it still enough. It disengages the blade. So Spyderco's lock on the Manix series operates the same way. You can just open and close that blade by pulling that lock, which is very handy. This is kind of my yard knife, meaning when I'm working out in the garden, because it's just so large, you can do a lot of things. These are custom scales I got here for the Manix 2, bought those, put those on. But I'm probably going to let this knife go. It's large, and I can get quite a bit of money for it, particularly because of the customized scale. Same thing is going to be the fate for the Stretch 2, but I just wanted to show you that the lock mechanism on the Manix is very similar to the one on the Ganzos. They're similar to a Benchmade, but that Spyderco does have a lock that's very similar to that, but only on the Manix. If they started putting this lock on a Stretch or a Paramilitary 2 or a Para 3, that would be amazing. But again, not a budget knife, but I just wanted to show you that lock. But anyway, for budget knives, these two great options. These two Ganzos. All right, we're almost getting down to the end here. This is the Honey Badger, small version. Now they make this in a medium version and a large version. I'm going to put the Meadowlark back out here, or sort of Delica type reference, right? I'll put the Kershaw there as well, so you can see it. Let's see what other blade I want to put out there that's sort of similar. Well, I tell you what, this is not a sub 50 blade. It is a sub 100 blade, and if you have between $75 to $100 to spend, I would highly recommend the Spyderco Chaparral lightweight. I have other Chaparrals, and I actually am going to keep this one. I've actually got it engraved on the other side, laser engraved. Great little lightweight knife, back lock, but again, not under $50, but it shows you the size comparisons there, okay? Let me move these out of the way, get back to this Honey Badger. The Honey Badger, it comes in green and black and this like tan or copper, not copper, but like bronze, I don't know, color. If you look at it online, it looks a little bit more golden, like has more like, tanner than this, then this looks a little bit more dark brown. But it is also both a finger opening knife, right? You can put it in the finger hole there like a Spyderco, but you can also flip it, and the action on this is really great. This knife runs for, let's see, you can get it for $32 in the small. I think the medium is $34, the large is $36, so they're pretty consistent on their pricing. It is a liner lock. You can see you just push the liner over to close it. But again, the action is great on this. It has textured FRN scales and kind of a honeycomb pattern. It has a deep carry pocket clip that is not reversible, right? Either for, this is tip up carry only, so it can't be tip down, it can't be a left hand. It does have the lanyard hole. I love the jimping on the bottom of the blade here and the finger choil, and also on the top. This knife feels like a much more expensive knife. I love this knife. Right now, this is the favorite budget knife I have, is the Honey Badger, small version. So let me roll back in knives I know I'm going to be keeping that are in that sub $50 category. You have the Honey Badger, the Byrd Meadowlark, the Ganzo F759. I'm going to set it on top of the Meadowlark just because they're sort of the same size there. I will definitely be keeping the Kershaw Shuffle II. I like that knife quite a bit. Got to make some room here. I'll be keeping both of these Ganzos, both the 733 and the 729. I don't know, I may get rid of the 729 because of the delicate point on it. So those are the sub $50 knives that I will definitely, I'm probably going to keep this Ganzo as well, just because I love the way it looks. But as far as practical everyday knives, let me take this one off because it's a little heavy as far as I'm concerned. Oh, it's a great knife if you want a blade length that's long. You can see how it compares to other blade lengths here. But as far as lightweight, everyday carry knives, the ones that I'll be keeping, sub $50 ones that I'd be keeping would be the Kershaw Shuffle II, the Byrd Meadowlark, the Honey Badger, and the small version, right? And keep in mind that something that's similar to, or basically the same knife as the Meadowlark, from Byrd, is the Ganzo F759M. Again, this comes in a variety of colors. This comes in a variety of colors. I highly recommend any of these knives for a sub $50 lightweight daily carry knife. If you are in the market for a pocket knife, you want something a little longer, you're okay spending above $50 but less than $100, I would suggest either the Spyderco Stretch 2 or the Para 3. Para 3 is a little smaller than the Stretch 2. Here's the Stretch 2. The Para 3 is a little closer in size to, say, like the Meadowlark would be. Sort of that Delica type size blade. I'll roll the blade links in there for you. If you want a smaller blade that's sort of similar to that Meadowlark size, Spyderco Chaparral and lightweight is a great option. Love that knife. I have 3 other versions of this that came out for previous years, like a titanium, a carbon fiber, and then the Raphael Noble one, which I actually bought on mine and my wife's 20th anniversary trip to Colorado. We went by the Spyderco store and picked that one up. But if you have more than $50, I would recommend the Para 2 lightweight, the Stretch lightweight, Stretch 2 lightweight, or the Chaparral. I do not recommend the Endura or the Delica just because they don't have those forward finger choils. And yeah, that would be the 4 knives that I would recommend to you, and I basically consider these 2 knives the same knife. Something I use frequently is the Spyderco Ladybug Salt. The salt steel, the H1 steel from Spyderco, does not rust, so this stays hanging on the key rack in my kitchen. You can open and close it with one hand despite it being very small. It has like this Hawkbill serrated. It's really good for opening packages. So I open food packages or anything that's going to be wet or just anything, honestly. And I have not had to sharpen this in probably the 10 years, 8 to 10 years I've owned it. I use that probably 3 to 4 times a day, and it stays on the key rack in the kitchen. Spyderco Dragonfly, Spyderco Ladybug Salt. Serrated, use that, like I said, multiple times every day. The other knife that's on my keychain, this is a Byrd from Spyderco. I think this is the Finch. I'm gonna take it off my, I have this great keychain, Trokea keychain, which should be a review. Makes it easier to take things off. But this knife stays on my keychain. It's not that heavy, but it is in G10, meaning it's got that hard, thicker handle. It's got steel liners for a very small knife. What's great about this knife, it's got that like bird hole / spidey hole. You can open this one-handed. It has a forward finger choil and jimping on the top ramp. And I'm going to tell you, for 95% of my daily tasks, I could use this boy. And I probably use it a couple of times per day. So the Byrd Finch, I think that's what it's called. Also, this knife would be under $50. This Ladybug Salt is probably right at $50. Those are the 2 knives I use most frequently. And I would be sad if I lost either one of those. In fact, I've been thinking about getting a backup of this one and of this one because I would just use them so often. But if you're looking for an everyday carry budget knife, less than $50, easily replaceable, buy a backup if you need to, comes in multiple colors. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.